Once upon a time, in a small village, there was an old man named Mr. Smith who loved to garden. He had a tiny but well-tended garden where he grew all sorts of vegetables. One day, Mr. Smith decided to plant some turnip seeds. He carefully sowed the seeds, watered them, and waited patiently for them to grow. As the days passed, the turnip plants sprouted and grew, but there was one turnip that seemed to be growing bigger than all the others. It became enormous. Mr. Smith had never seen such a gigantic turnip in all his years of gardening. He knew that it was time to harvest the turnip, but it was so enormous that he couldn't do it alone. So, he called for his wife, Mrs. Smith, to help him. Together, they tugged and pulled at the enormous turnip, but it wouldn't budge. They needed more help, so Mrs. Smith called their granddaughter, Lily, who was a strong and energetic young girl. Lily joined her grandparents in the garden, and the three of them pulled with all their might, but still, the turnip wouldn't come out of the ground. They knew they needed more help, so Lily ran to get their neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, and their two sons, Tom and Tim. The whole neighborhood gathered in Mr. Smith's garden, and together they all gave a tremendous heave, pulling the enormous turnip out of the ground with a mighty pop. The turnip was so massive that it rolled and bounced, and everyone cheered with joy. They had done it. The enormous turnip was finally out of the ground. Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, Lily, the Browns, Tom, and Tim were also grateful for their teamwork. They decided to share the enormous turnip with the entire village. They held a grand feast, where they cooked the turnip into a delicious stew that fed everyone in the village. From that day on, the village learned the importance of working together and helping one another when faced with a challenge. The enormous turnip became a symbol of their unity and teamwork, reminding them that when they all pulled together, they could accomplish even the most enormous tasks. And so, the story of the enormous turnip became a cherished tale in their village, passed down from generation to generation, teaching the value of cooperation and the power of community.